players earn their way back, and we never say, God, I wish I had this kid. It would have been nice to have a lot of those guys in the opener, but it doesn't matter. You know, we never look at it and say, well, let's not suspend them for this game, but then suspend them for the other game. It's and not every player's time served isn't the only thing that gets them back. You know, there's a system in place where they have to earn their way back, and if they can't do it, then they don't earn their way back. And some guys it took them a lot longer. Other guys it takes them a little bit shorter. But there's a system in place that rewards you for doing the right things. And if you do the right things, then you'll have an opportunity to play again. But if you're not going to do the right things, then you're not going to have the opportunity to play again.
Felicia, I'm going to go to the phone lines now. Accept questions there. If you have a question for Coach Kelly, please press *1 on your telephone keypad.
And your first question comes from the line of Dwight James with Comcast Sportsnet.
Hey Chip, you've referred in the past to a system in place for earning your way back. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and what it takes to get back?
Yeah, they have behavioral and academic ladders that they have to climb to get back into this program.
Again, to ask a question, press *1. And there are no further questions.
Okay, Rob Mosley.
How'd you watching Kiko the way he handled himself on the field? How'd you grade him out? How do you feel like he got back into it after so long?
He was okay. I mean, he hasn't played football in 2 years basically. Missed all last season, so you know, I think there were some times where he flashed and showed some things that he's capable of. But I think he as well as Coach Collin and Coach Allen will say the same thing. That you know he needs to continue to improve and get better. But you know, for his first time out there, game speed against a real tough offense to diagnose a lot of things. You know, there's a lot of moving parts in Nevada's offense. So I thought he did a decent job, but we hope he'll continue to grow from there. So.
Jake.
LaMichael's been returning kicks this year. What was the process he only returned one? I mean, punt his career before this year. So what was the process to get him back there returning punts and kicks?
Injuries. Kenyon Barner's out right now, so and Cliff was out, so you know you got to pick some other guys. And Josh Huff is a returner for us, but been out a little bit. So it's really there's a slew of guys that are back there practicing. But I mean, you've been to camp, you watch us in camp. All those guys are back there in camp, and not a lot of those guys have been available in the first couple of games. So.
How do you think he's done as a kicker? Obviously, returned that punt for a touchdown. Do you think it helps him be more attractive to the NFL if he can show that he can return kicks and punt?
I don't know about that. I mean, we don't do things to display guys for that, but I think it helps us as a football team when obviously you have a kid that's that dangerous, a returner with the ball in his hands, and it's been done here for a while. Jonathan Stewart was a great kick return guy. Did some really good things in the kick return game. So did Jeremiah Johnson. You know, the fact that LaMichael is that versatile really just speaks to his athleticism. So.
Jesse?
Chip, can you talk about Colt and his transition so far into the college game?
Yeah, Colt's just still learning. You know, young freshman like a lot of them. You know, and he's a true freshman. And he's playing a position he hasn't played before. You know, he was more of a running back in high school. So he's transitioned into playing tight end, and you know, we eventually hope once he gets settled at tight end and gets that down pat, then all of a sudden we can move him around and play him in some different spots. You know, similar to what we did with Ed Dixon and what we do with David Paulson now. But it's still, you know, he's still young, and I think he has a world of athletic ability. But I think we're very aware of the fact that he's still a true freshman and needs to make sure, you know, we got to make sure we grow with him the right way and not put too much on his plate. But obviously made a big catch on Saturday. Starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Really just played special teams in the first game and got his first taste of playing offense against Nevada. So it's really the first time he ever played was last Saturday. So, you know, hopefully he'll continue to grow as the season goes along. You know, we wish we weren't in this situation, but, you know, we lost to Brandon Williams. We were kind of forced, knew we were going to have to play a young kid behind David just because of the lack of depth we have at that position. So I'm pleased with Colt, but he's still a true freshman and growing really in the mental aspect of the game. He's got a lot of physical tools. But again, the transition he's having to make from playing a brand new position. A lot of kids come in, you know, DeAnthony Thomas was a running back in high school. Well, DeAnthony Thomas is a running back here at Oregon. Cole's playing a whole new position. So I think he's handled it well.
HJ?
Coach, you were able to play a lot of depth on both sides of the ball last game. After reviewing the film, did anyone stand out in their first, you know, taste of gameplay to you as doing a really good job, catch your eye?
No, the guys who stood out, and I said that, you know, when we talked about it on Sunday with Rob and those guys were Taylor Hart played another really, really good game for us on the defensive line. I think Terrence Mitchell has gotten better in the secondary. Michael Clay stood out at linebacker for us. Mark Asper, really the older guys. Mark Asper played really, really well on the offensive line. Obviously, D'Anthony and Michael had a nice day. And it's still a work in progress, but there's not one young kid that I'm like, wow, he really, because what happens with young kids, it's like a Troy Hill, he makes one play and you're like, oh my God, but then he may have missed a couple other plays. So it's, the big thing we're looking for, especially with our younger players, is consistency. And that it's the same consistent effort every play, the same consistent, not missing assignments, not getting misaligned on something. So that's what we're really striving for.
Steven?
With the 3-4 defense, what challenges does that present to your offense?
Just to any offense, it's just spacing, and it's not what you've gone against in preparation for most of your teams. It's just different. It's no different than if you played an I formation team and your team's an I formation team, and then all of a sudden you go to play against a spread team. It's just a new look, and it's getting ready to get prepared for it. But you got 2 guard bubbles, which you don't have in a 4-down defense. Usually the center's the uncovered player in the 4-down defense, and in a 3-4 defense you got a true nose guard, so your center's going to have someone on his head all the time, which he usually doesn't do when he's playing 4-3 teams. So there's some schematic problems that I think that defense presents, but it's really just the familiarity with it. The good thing is that our defense runs some of it during camp, so we've got some familiarity with it, but the way Missouri State runs is a little bit different than the way our defense runs it. So we can kind of simulate the looks a little bit, but it's still going to be kind of new to us.
Coach, could you talk about Osigo Locombo and how he's kind of stepped up and been pretty consistent the last couple of weeks in terms of forcing turnovers?
Yeah, I think Bo kind of picked up where he was last year. Really one of our true playmakers on defense. If you remember the Arizona State game, he picked up a fumble and returned for a touchdown, and always seems to be around the ball. He has a great understanding of what we're doing defensively. 2 years ago we switched and had Coach Aliotti specifically just coach the Sam linebackers, and I think that's paid huge benefits. If you look at the production we've gotten out of our Sam since Nick has taken Josh and Bo and really gets a chance to coach them by himself, and we have a true outside linebacker coach. And, we really feel we got 2 interchangeable parts in Seiko and Josh, and he can rush a passer and cause a lot of problems that way. He's a great special teams player for us and really stands out there. And then obviously, picking up where he left off kind of in high school, because he was a really good running back in high school, and you kind of saw that on display. But I believe that's the 2nd touchdown he scored so far in his career, and I hope he gets a couple more. But I think he's that type of player that can change the landscape of the game. When not only can he create a turnover, he can do something with it. So.
Yeah. Hey Chip,
Ken, you're late. I know you were mad about me yesterday, but I'm not talking about you being late today.
It's on me today.
It's on you today. So.
Carson York, can you talk a little bit about what he's meant to your offensive line, 1, and 2, what kind of advertising executive you think he might become someday?
I think first on the last part, I think he's awesome. He is well spoken, well thought out. When we have team meetings or sometimes just sit and talk to our squad leaders, some of the things that come out of his mouth, just his perspective on things, there's a maturity to him. He's been up for a couple academic awards. I know he missed a day in spring ball last year because he was on an academic thing out in Boise that he led the university from the business school. But he brings kind of that same mentality to the offensive line. That he's a real grounded kid. In games like LSU or the national championship, doesn't get caught up, and he's a real introspective and kind of puts things into relationships. And he can put himself in situations where there's a calming effect over the other group up there. He's really not losing his mind and going crazy in certain situations because there's a maturity to him. So, really the real kind of the thinking man's football player right there, and starting to become a real physical presence right now. And that's what I really like about Carson is he continues to mature. That we can really count on him anchoring down that spot. And again, it's kind of that everybody kind of looks to him when there's a question or something going on. You always want to kind of get Carson's input on things to kind of find out what he thinks about it, because he usually has a pretty good angle on where he's coming from.
And you can see him maybe selling a lot of hamburgers from McDonald's today.
I can see him doing anything. I think he'd be really successful in whatever he chooses to do. So he'll be hiring us.
Jake?
Obviously went back and forth yesterday kind of in the media, but did you talk to anyone from the Pac-12 or any officials about
I haven't talked to anybody in the Pac-12.
Are you Can you talk about, I guess, if you embrace the O as a symbol for the school, what does it mean to the guys in the team and to the school in general, that kind of hand symbol of pride in the school?
The symbol itself means a lot. I mean, I think there's an instant recognition and identification of the O, just if it's on someone's shirt, or if it's on the side of the stadium, or if you're just walking through an airport. You know, and I've heard people tell stories about being in Europe and saying all of a sudden you see that, and that O is a distinctive O. So, but going back to that, I believe in the celebration rule, and our players, we teach our players to celebrate as a team, and we spend time showing video from other teams on how they do it. But I'm not getting caught up in any of that, and I've not received any phone calls from the Pac-12. So that's kind of a moot point to me.
Have you told your guys to?
I haven't
to
talked to
keep
my
doing
guys
it
about
tonight?
anything. We don't talk about that. We tell our guys one thing: when you score a touchdown, you celebrate as a team, because you're the only guy that got yourself in the end zone. If it's a receiver, then that means that we had an offensive lineman blocking for you, and gave the quarterback time. We always want to celebrate as a team, and I think that's a big thing for us. And if you watch our guys do it, I think they can really get excited, whether it's a big play on defense or whether it's someone scoring a touchdown. There's a lot of guys getting around there and celebrate, because this is a fun game, and you should enjoy that. And I think any undue attention that you call to yourself, no matter what it is, that's not what we're all about. All of our celebrations should be as a team, and that's what we emphasize to our players.
Rob, based on your thoughts on Carson, would it behoove you to recruit more future journalism school students?
Yes, I've been with Deb Morrison in the J School, who's actually going to be hired as our recruiting coordinator. See if she can help us out. So.
Going against the 3-4 for Hronis, will this be a unique challenge compared to the last 2 weeks? I mean, has he faced much of a true nose guard?
Well, he in the LSU game, because they played an odd package in third down, he faced a true nose guard, but not every snap. So however many snaps we get, 60, 70, whatever, he's going to have a kid on his head, and that'll be. He got some good work in camp with having guys like Ricky and Wade and those guys on his head. But to have one every single snap, I think that's going to be a real challenge and a real matchup to watch. Is how does our center match up against our nose?
Felicia, we're going to go back to the phone lines one more time. Are there any more questions awaiting there? Please press *1 on your telephone keypad.
And there are no questions.
Okay. Any more? Ken?
As you pointed out, I was late, so I'm sorry if you've already answered this question. Some schools like sort of a 1-1-1 scheduling thing with non-conference games. One really tough opponent, one more in the middle, and one that you kind of want. Is that something that you embrace, or do you care one way or another?
I do care. Good question. I do care who I play, but it's one of those deals where you can have a philosophy that's this, but to implement that philosophy is very difficult. As I said earlier before you came in, we were scheduled to play Utah this weekend, and then when Utah came into the league and the schedule got all jumbled, and when it ended up in the end we weren't going to play them, they went off the schedule, and then we were scrambling, and there were only X amount of teams out there that had September 17th open, and it was with less than a year to go. I think we finalized this game, I don't know if it was in February or March of this year. So there's always an ideal philosophy. We'd like to do this, we'd like to play that, but what I think people don't realize is scheduling is a lot harder as I started to get involved in it, and obviously it's done it with Rob and those guys, but and they always ask me, can we play these guys or those guys, but every odd year we're only going to have 4 conference games. So then to say we want to go 1-1-1, well, are we going to go on the road and play a game? Well, we need to play 3 conference. We need to play 3 opponents at home, because there's also revenue aspects of it, as how many home games are you having, and they're planning your whole entire athletic budget based on 7 home football games. Well, we want to play School X. Well, School X is going to ask for $1.1 million to come in here, when School Y is going to ask for $500,000 to come in here. So that's where it becomes a difficult situation on who you want to play. In a situation like this, no one's going to play a 1 game on the road and just a 1 and done. And if that becomes the case, your pool of who's going to come in a 1 and done situation gets a lot smaller. I enjoyed playing at Michigan. I loved playing at Tennessee. I loved playing the supposed neutral site game in Dallas. But if you do that, then there's the catch-22 for the fans. We all want to play the big games, but we're not going to play any at home. And I said it last week or whatever. There's not a lot of people that when we say we've got these dates open are saying we'd love to come to Autzen Stadium. And that's the tough part with it is how does that whole thing match up? And who will come? And with all this conference realignment that keeps going on, half of the schedules keep getting thrown out the window. So then, are you going to have to start again and saying who are our out-of-conference opponents?